Hello. Welcome back to another episode on Reddit Raccoon. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe and leave a like. Every country has a national hero, but who is your national villain? Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka. Was looking for a Canadian answer. Curious to see if there would be a consensus. Those are good choices. Robert Picton probably deserves to be in the conversation. This is definitely a better response than what I was going to say, since mine was a part joke. I was going to say that since Terry Fox is our national hero, cancer is the national villain. Lady who put a cat in a bin. If I've got the country right, surely it's Piers and Katie Hopkins. I was gonna say Savile. I was thinking Ian Brady and Myra Hindley. Vidkun Quisling. I had a kid in my high school World War II history class whose last name was Quisling and was related. Our teacher asked him why he never changed his last name. What an insensitive question to pose to a little child who has no power to change his own last name. I experienced a similar situation like this, except it was in a French class for adults, and we were discussing topics of nationalities, history and geopolitics. My old professor paused and asked a girl present there if she was related to Pablo Escobar, and she said yes. She usually goes by her husband's last name, but on records, using both his last name and her maiden name. All of my class was shocked, and we got to hear her account on the Wild Uncle. There was a legitimate concern about her maternal family's safety as they chose not to change name. The child can't choose their last name, but parents surely can. All of Muhammad Ali's children. As an Egyptian, they just ruined everything their father did. Edit for clarification. Muhammad Ali as in one of the rulers of Egypt, not the boxer. Are you talking about the Albanian Ottoman governor of Egypt who rose through the ranks, starting as a simple artilleryman to being the governor of the richest province to gaining independence, and was defeated by the help of Great Britain? If that's the case, that man has a crazy backstory. They regard him as a traitor in the Turkish history lessons, but they should credit him. Leopold II, king of the Belgians. The guy who really wanted Congo? More like brutally exploited. Lots of death and hand chopping offs. A fellow Belgian on Reddit once called it hands down the worst part of our history. As a German, I think I don't even need to spell out the answer. Lords in Austrian. It is kind of ironic that two of the biggest political figures of the 20th century weren't even from the country they are commonly associated with. Probably the biggest figure of the 19th century, Napoleon Bonaparte, was also not technically born in the country he is mainly associated with, France. He was born on Corsica in August 1769. And France didn't finish conquering it until mid-1770. This is only a few months. But Napoleon was initially raised a Corsican nationalist by his revolutionary parents. Our hero and our villain were the same person depending on who you talk to. Ned Kelly. I'm playing both sides, so I will always come out on top. As an Italian, I would like to say Mussolini, but I don't think we're there yet. My grandparents' childhood village in the south still has propaganda paintings on the walls from the war. The younger people want them gone, thank God, but still. Dear editors, I'm from Turkey and I refuse to answer this question simply in one purpose: to avoid prison. Respect. Peace. Peace. I spent a week in Istanbul and my tour guide refused to say his name, only calling him the tall man. Any questions we asked about him were answered in a huddle and in hushed voices. I was blown away by the level of fear everyone had for him. He's like Voldemort. No one says his name, but everyone knows who we're talking about. For Croatia, that would be Ante Pavelić, the leader of the Axis puppet state called the Independent State of Croatia, which committed genocide against Serbs, Jews and Roma. I've heard about this guy. Wasn't he so murderous that even the Nazis told him to dial it back a little? Undefined. Buddy, I know we are literally doing horrific human experiments and killing a bunch of people, but maybe you could calm it down a little? It's a bit too much. So maybe think about it for a minute, okay? The Germans actually had to tell a few places to chill because some of the European countries were so eager to send their Jews to concentration camps. Let's be real, it was more because they didn't have the capacity rather than the unwillingness to do it. Turns out it takes a bit of effort to commit industrialized genocide of an entire religion. And the Germans had their HNDS tied up with some pesky tea-loving island and some Russian dudes who really loved manual labor. It's interesting that a lot of famous figures can fill both roles depending on who you ask. Escom. We have two sides here in my country. The villain of the other is the hero of the opposite. And vice versa. Which country? The Philippines. Ita. And we don't have a de jure national hero as well. But there is a de facto one. I would think Pablo Escobar. As an Aussie. It's the stingray that got Steve Irwin. Came here to post this. But remembered that Steve would have wanted us to forgive. The Irwin siblings did have an interview where Bindi commented on it in context of what animals they don't like. Stingrays are really beautiful animals. Dad loved them. We love them and they are important to our environment. And I know Dad would be the first person to say I love stingrays. Also for the answer. She said she didn't dislike bees and wasps but really struggles with them. If Steve could come back from the dead for just a few sentences, chances are he would say, crikey, that stingray sure lives up to its name, ain't he? What a beautiful little bugger. That man was something else. Everyone deserves a partner who loves him or just 1% as much as Steve loved animals. Or how much Steve loved his family. The only part of him that wasn't an amazing father and husband was how dangerous his job was. With the very real possibility of leaving a widow. Peep. There was an interview with his wife a few years ago and they asked if she had considered dating again. Her reply was, paraphrasing, I already had the love of my life. Yeah, who can blame her? Those are some colossal shoes to fill. Yeah, who can blame her? Those are some colossal cargo shorts to fill. The emu. We lost the war. Jerks. None of my friends believe me about that. They think I'm completely lying. Even had two of them who went to Australia and asked a couple people there and said none of them knew what they were talking about, so I must be a liar. As a Russian. Half of the national heroes? I've been reading about Peter the Great and what a murderous psycho he was. Even Ivan the Terrible was more of a compliment. Ike. Terrible means something more like formidable rather than awful. Yeah. In Russian it's, which translates as formidable or fearsome. Kind of makes sense that he'd get a bad translation from the English. It wasn't a bad translation. Back when Ivan was alive, terrible typically meant formidable or fearsome. Over time its meaning changed to what it is now. Yay, same Latin root as terror. Diarrhea to frighten. Tony Chen Tong Kai Hong Kong. Explanation. He single-handedly caused the downfall of democracy in Hong Kong. Anders Bering Breivik. I hope he never gets a newer PlayStation he's been rambling about. No one knows for sure, or maybe some people do. But probably the guy who murdered our prime minister in an open street in 1986 and was never convinced for it. Pretty simple. I'm German. Oh yeah, got it, it's Helmut Kohl. It's Gerhard Schröder these days. Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos. Marcos family to be exact. And up to this date are still scumbags. Spaniard here. I have a long list. And on top of it is the little speep of Francisco Franco. Our dictator. R.I.P. Rest in pain. I was torn between that and Torquemada. Jacob Zuma is probably the scummiest scumbag ever. We've got one who's sort of both. Guy Fawkes. Villain. The guy tried to blow up the king and parliament. Hero. The guy tried to blow up the king and parliament. In South Africa. There would be a debate on this, but to me it was our ex-president Jacob Zuma. Undefined. Corruption? Try corruption as well as child murder. Child rape. Adult murder and rape. Money laundering. Torture. Kidnap, it goes on. WTH. Indonesian. Probably Jan Peter Soekarno, colonial governor, or Suharto, former dictator. There's this guy called General Dyer. He's probably the most hated guy in India. Here's the story. Britain has imposed Rowlatt Act in India. This act made protests and debates among Indians illegal. And also gave the cops right to arrest political prisoners without trial for 2 years. Of course people were angry. On the 13th of April 1919 people gathered up at Jallianwala Bagh. The people here consisted of protesters, residents and people who came to pray in a temple that exists in this area. When Dyer was said about this, he ordered to close all the gates of this place and shoot the people. And when he was asked why later, he said in order to create a moral effect and fear in people. Here's a better explanation.